The morning Marcus died, I found him in his study, slumped over the desk where he'd spent countless late nights building our future. The coffee I'd brought him was still warm in my hands when I realized he wasn't breathing. At 34, my husband was gone. A sudden heart attack that the doctors said was caused by an undiagnosed condition. One moment we were planning our 5th anniversary trip, and the next I was standing in a funeral home, picking out caskets while his family argued about flower arrangements. I'm Elena, and I was 31 when my world collapsed. Marcus and I had built something beautiful together, a small tech consulting firm that had just landed its biggest client, a house we'd renovated with our own hands, and dreams of children we'd never have. We'd been together since college, married for almost 5 years, and I thought I knew his family well. I was wrong. The first sign of trouble came at the funeral. While I stood there in black, trying to hold myself together, his mother Patricia cornered me by the refreshment table. Such a tragedy, she said, though her eyes were dry as dust. At least Nathan's wedding will give us something happy to focus on. Marcus would have wanted his brother to have the perfect day. Nathan, Marcus's younger brother, was getting married in 6 months to a woman named Scarlett who'd already been featured in 3 bridal magazines for her vision of a $200,000 wedding. Marcus used to joke that Nathan was marrying a wedding planner, not a wife. But standing there, with my husband not even in the ground yet, I just nodded and moved away. His father, Richard, was worse. He spent the entire reception telling anyone who listened about the unfairness of losing his successful son, while shooting meaningful glances at me. Of course the business will need to be handled properly, he'd said when he cornered me near the coat room. Family assets should stay in the family. I'd assumed he was offering to help. How naive. The 3 months that followed were a blur of paperwork, grief, and trying to keep the business running while learning to sleep in an empty bed. Marcus had handled most of our company's technical side while I managed clients and operations. Now I was doing both, working 18-hour days just to keep from drowning in memories. His family called exactly twice. Once to ask for Marcus's watch collection, which I refused. Once to inform me they'd need the good photos from our wedding for Nathan's rehearsal dinner slideshow. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't offer help. They certainly didn't mention the will. I knew Marcus had a will, we'd both made them after buying the house. But in my grief, I'd put off the formal reading, telling myself I couldn't handle another final goodbye. The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, had been patient, calling weekly to check in. Finally, 12 weeks after the funeral, I agreed to come in. Would you like to invite Marcus's family? Mr. Harrison had asked. It's not required, but some prefer to have everyone present. I should have said no, but some part of me thought maybe this would bring closure. Maybe seeing Marcus's final wishes would help us all move forward. I called Patricia that evening. Finally, was all she said. We'll all be there. The law office of Harrison and Associates occupied the top floor of a restored Victorian building downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing the same black dress I'd worn to the funeral because it still felt wrong to wear color. The receptionist, a kind woman named Dorothy, brought me tea and told me Mr. Harrison would be ready soon. Marcus's family arrived exactly on time, flooding the quiet waiting room with their presence. Patricia wore a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's rent, her pearl necklace catching the light as she surveyed the room with disapproval. Richard followed, checking his phone and muttering about parking. Nathan came last with Scarlett, who was scrolling through what looked like a wedding planning app. Elena, Patricia said, her tone suggesting she found something distasteful on her shoe. You look tired. Mom, Nathan warned quietly, but she waved him off. I'm just concerned. It can't be easy handling everything alone. A woman your age should be thinking about moving forward. 3 months. My husband had been dead for 3 months. Mr. Harrison appeared before I could respond, ushering us into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The autumn light streaming in seemed too cheerful for the occasion. We arranged ourselves around the polished table, Marcus's family on one side, me on the other, the empty chair beside me screaming his absence. Thank you all for coming, Mr. Harrison began, opening a leather folder. I know this is difficult, but Marcus was very clear about his wishes. He updated his will 6 months ago, actually after the company's expansion. Patricia shifted in her seat. 6 months ago. Yes, he came in personally, said he wanted to ensure everything was properly documented given the business's growth. Mr. Harrison pulled out a sealed envelope. Now the will is straightforward. Marcus has left the entirety of his estate, the business, the house, all financial accounts and assets, to his wife, Elena. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. That's impossible, Richard said flatly. The business was built with family money. I beg your pardon. I looked at him in disbelief. Marcus and I built that company from nothing. We worked out of our apartment for 2 years before we could afford an office. With the loan we gave him, Patricia added smoothly, $50,000. Family investment in a family business. This was news to me. Marcus had never mentioned any loan. We'd bootstrapped everything, living on raiment and dreams until we landed our first major client. I started to say as much when Nathan cleared his throat. Look, Elena, no one's trying to be difficult here, but Marcus is gone, and you have to think about what he would have wanted. His brother's getting married. It's a major family event. Surely he'd want to contribute. Contribute? I stared at them. Are you asking me for money for your wedding? Scarlett finally looked up from her phone. It's not about asking. It's about what's right. Marcus promised to pay for the platinum package at the Riverside Manor. $20,000 just for the venue plus. He what? I turned to Nathan. Marcus never mentioned. Of course he didn't tell you, Patricia interrupted. He knew you'd make it difficult. You always were practical about money. But family comes first. That money belongs to Nathan's wedding. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Perhaps we should review the actual will. The will is wrong, Richard stated. Our son's money belongs to his family. Blood family. He gestured at me like I was furniture, was just a 5-year inconvenience. Nathan needs that money for his future. For his real family. I am his family, I said quietly, anger finally breaking through the grief. I was his wife. For now, Patricia said. But you're young. You'll remarry. Meanwhile, our bloodline continues through Nathan. It's only right that Marcus's money goes to support that continuation. The wedding, the honeymoon, the house they'll need. The house? I laughed, short and bitter. You want me to fund Nathan's entire life. Our son's money, Richard repeated firmly, should go to our son's brother. If you had any decency, any real love for Marcus, you'd understand that. You'd sign it all over willingly. I think we should continue with the reading, Mr. Harrison interjected, but Patricia stood up. There's nothing to read. That will is fraudulent. Marcus would never leave everything to her while his brother struggles to pay for a proper wedding. We'll contest it. We'll prove she manipulated him, isolated him from his family. You isolated yourselves, I snapped. When was the last time you called him without wanting something? When did you ever visit without criticizing our house, our choices, our life? The only time Macon spoke to Marcus in the last year was to ask for money. How dare you? Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Harrison's voice cut through the brewing storm. He was holding a second envelope, this one with a red seal. There's more. Patricia slowly sat back down, eyes fixed on the envelope like it might bite. Mr. Harrison opened it carefully, pulling out what looked like a letter and several documents. Marcus left specific instructions that if anyone contested the will or challenged Elena's inheritance, I was to open this secondary packet. He unfolded the letter, and I recognized Marcus's handwriting immediately. My throat tightened. Shall I read it aloud? Mr. Harrison asked, looking at each of us. Patricia had gone pale. Go ahead, Richard said, though his confidence had cracked. Mr. Harrison began, to my family, if you're hearing this, it means you've done exactly what I feared you would. You've tried to take from Elena what is rightfully hers, probably under the guise of family loyalty or Nathan's wedding. So let me be clear about a few things. The room was so quiet I could hear Scarlett's breathing. First, there was no family loan. The $50,000 you'll claim you gave me, that was Mom's inheritance from Grandma Rose, which she received when I was 12. I know because I was there when the lawyer explained it was for all 3 grandchildren equally. My share was never given to me. He spent it on the kitchen renovation and Dad's boat. I have the receipts. Patricia's face had gone from pale to gray. Nathan looked confused, turning to his parents. What is he talking about? Mr. Harrison continued reading. Second, I have documented every loan you've asked for over the years. The $30,000 for Dad's failed restaurant venture. The $20,000 for Mom's boutique that never opened. The $45,000 for Nathan's music career that produced 1 demo tape. Total, $95,000, all of which came from our company's profits. All of which you never intended to repay. This is ridiculous, Richard started, but Mr. Harrison held up a hand. Third, and most importantly, I have recordings. Every holiday dinner where you told Elena she wasn't really family because we didn't have children yet. Every phone call where Mom suggested I could do better with someone from our kind of people. The conversation at last year's Christmas where you spent 3 hours planning Nathan's wedding with our money while Elena was in the kitchen, cooking your dinner alone. I remembered that night. I'd made a feast for 12 people while they sat in a living room, discussing venues and flowers and how much Marcus should contribute. Not what should. Like it was an obligation. He found me crying in the pantry and held me while I wondered what I'd done wrong to make them hate me so much. The recordings are all here, Mr. Harrison said, tapping a flash drive. Along with copies of forged checks Nathan wrote on my account, security footage of Dad taking equipment from our office, and email evidence of Mom trying to convince our clients to work with Nathan instead. I kept it all, hoping I'd never need it. Nathan had shrunk in his chair. Scarlett was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. Patricia and Richard sat frozen, their earlier arrogance evaporating. But here's the part that will interest you most, Mr. Harrison continued reading. If you contest this will, if you harass Elena, if you so much as suggest she owes you anything, my lawyers have instructions to pursue criminal charges for fraud, theft, and embezzlement. The evidence is comprehensive. You will lose and you will face consequences. However, he paused, if you accept the will quietly and leave Elena in peace, she has the option, not obligation, to gift Nathan $20,000 for his wedding. This is not because you deserve it, but because I hope somewhere in your hearts, you might find the decency to treat my wife with the respect she's always shown you. Mr. Harrison set down the letter and looked at them over his glasses. The choice is yours. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Finally, Patricia spoke, her voice barely a whisper. He knew. He knew everything, I said quietly. He kept hoping you'd change, that you'd see him as more than a bank account, that you'd see me as family, but he also knew who you really were. Richard's face had gone red. This is blackmail. No, Mr. Harrison corrected. It's consequences. Something I believe you've avoided for quite some time. Nathan suddenly stood. I need to think. He looked at me, and for the first time maybe ever, I saw shame in his eyes. Elena, I didn't know about. I knew they asked for money sometimes, but... You knew enough, I said tiredly. You knew they treated me like an outsider. You knew they used Marcus. You just didn't care because you benefited from it. He didn't deny it. Scarlett was already heading for the door, her wedding planning apparently forgotten. Nathan followed, pausing at the threshold. The wedding. We'll figure it out ourselves. After they left, Patricia and Richard sat in defeated silence. Finally, Richard stood, helping his wife to her feet. They looked older somehow, diminished. The $20,000. Patricia asked weakly. I thought about it. Thought about Marcus, about the hope he carried that his family might someday be better. About the grief of losing not just him but the possibility of the loving family he'd always wanted. No, I said simply, you made your choice every time you treated me as less than family, every time you valued his money over his happiness. The will stands as written. All of it stays with me. They left without another word. Mr. Harrison waited until the door closed before speaking. There's one more thing. Marcus left you a personal letter. He asked me to give it to you privately. He handed me a familiar cream envelope, the kind Marcus always used for special occasions. My hands shook as I opened it. My darling Elena, it began. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and they shown their true colors. I'm sorry you had to face them alone. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this final hurt, but I knew you'd be strong enough, because you've always been the strongest person I know. The money, the business, the house, it's all yours. Not because you're my wife, but because you're my partner. We built this life together, and it belongs to you. Don't let them make you feel guilty. Don't let them diminish what we had. I know you'll grieve, but I also know you'll survive. You'll make the business even better than we dreamed. You'll fill our house with life and laughter again. You'll find happiness, because that's who you are, someone who creates light in dark places. Thank you for 5 years of marriage and 7 years of love. Thank you for seeing me as more than my family's failures. Thank you for being my family when they couldn't be. All my love, always, Marcus. I sat in that conference room long after Mr. Harrison left, holding the letter and crying the tears I'd held back for 3 months. Not just for losing Marcus, but for the family he deserved and never had. For the pain he carried silently. For the love he'd given so freely despite never receiving it from those who should have loved him most. 2 weeks later, Nathan called. He'd broken up with Scarlett and taken a job in another state. I need to figure out who I am without them, he said, without their expectations and manipulations. I'm sorry, Elena, for everything. I wished him well and meant it. Patricia and Richard never contacted me again. I heard through mutual friends that they'd sold their house and moved to a retirement community in Florida. Their social circle significantly diminished after word spread about the will reading. As for me, I kept the business running and growing, hiring 2 developers who reminded me of Marcus and their passion and dedication. I kept our house too, filling it with rescue dogs and Sunday dinners for chosen family, friends who'd stood by me through the worst year of my life. Sometimes I still reach for Marcus in the morning, forgetting for a moment that he's gone. But then I remember his letter, his faith in my strength, his gift of not just financial security but freedom from the toxic family dynamics that had haunted our marriage. He was wrong about one thing though. I wasn't the strongest person he knew. He was, strong enough to love despite receiving so little. Strong enough to protect me even in death. Strong enough to choose love over blood, partnership over manipulation, truth over comfortable lies. The business thrives. The house is full of life. And somewhere, I hope Marcus knows that his final gift wasn't just an inheritance. It was justice.